my name is Claire Broad. I'm a medium, a spiritual teacher and a best-selling author. And in this short video, I'm going to talk to you about the spiritual dimensions and are there hospitals and resting places there? So one of the members of this community, Lily Anna, put a question to me asking if I would make a video about hospitals and resting places in the spirit world. And I thought this was a wonderful question actually, or topic for a video, because it's giving that little bit more insight into what we might expect from the spiritual dimensions or after we die. So when I give my answer here in this video, I want you to just bear in mind, of course, that I'm here living in this physical world with you all and I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to speak from personal experience and from the research that I have done and put the two together and try to give you a little picture, just something that you can chew over in your own mind, you know, agree with, disagree with, wherever you are in your understanding, and perhaps engage in conversation. So as I was looking after my grandmother when she was 92 years old, she was dying of old age, and I would come around her, visit her in her home where she was able to pass because family were nurturing and looking after her here to ensure that she could die at home. There was nothing wrong with my nan's brain. She didn't need medication for pain. She literally was just passing with old age. And that gave me such a privileged insight into the dying process. And part of that dying process was I noticed that my nan was talking to people that none of us could see. It seemed as she was becoming closer to the spiritual dimensions and further away from the physical, she was able to engage with people that were coming around her, offering her help and support. I had insight knowing that my nan had seen spirit people herself as she was growing up and through her adult years. And so we did have some spiritual understanding that my nan probably was seeing spirit people. Now that frustrated me actually, because as a medium myself, I couldn't work out why it was I couldn't sense or feel them. So I felt a little frustrated, and I think it was because I was so grounded in the emotion of everything, having to say goodbye to my nan, knowing that time would be coming, that sadness kind of grounded me in this world. Plus, as many of you will know, when you're looking after a loved one, you know, when they're at that stage in their life, it is quite stressful. It does ground you. You're worrying about, are they getting the best care? Are you doing the best thing for them? You know, are you fulfilling their needs and wants? And that can also really root you in this world, because that's where you need to be. You are here looking after their earthly body, helping them to make the transition from this world to the next. But of course, family members would ask me, are you seeing anyone? Are you seeing any deceased loved ones coming around? Do you know if it's time yet? And I didn't know. And, you know, that surprised me and frustrated me. Now, the only insight that I did get was one day as I sat around my nan's bed, she was sleeping, and I just sent my mind out to feel if there was any spirit people around helping my nan. And I didn't sense anyone in particular, but what I sensed, which surprised me, was a hospital setting superimposed over my nan's bedroom. Now, that surprised me because she was at home, obviously, and we were family caring for her, helping her through a natural dying process. So to see a hospital setting, I thought was really interesting. I would say it was more like a hospice probably than a hospital setting. It was very relaxing, a room over her room where I just knew that spirit helpers were coming in with the intention of helping and nurturing her across, much like as palliative care nurses here nurture the dying and help them to pass. The same was going on the other side of life. Well, that gave me a new insight and a new understanding, because I began to realise that we really are never alone and that no one passes on their own. Even though I didn't know who these caring spirit beings were in the spirit world that were helping my nan, it was just nice to know and to sense and to feel that she would be welcomed into a nurturing, caring environment when she died. Now, what was really interesting was a couple of days after me feeling and sensing this, I went to visit my nan again and look after her, and she mentioned to me that a lady doctor had been to see her and told her the reason she was still living this side of life was because her heart was too strong, and so she wasn't physically ready yet to separate the spirit away from the body. Now, that absolutely fascinated me because my nan's doctor was a man, and I knew he'd not visited her that day. She hadn't had any visitors. That's why I was there. So to hear her say that to me kind of validated the experience I'd had and gave me more, I guess, faith, trust that what I'd experienced was real. Now, following on from that, I then went on to discover there's actually been quite a lot of research into deathbed visions of this kind. And somebody called Dr. Penny Sartori, a doctor in the UK, has actually done a lot of research into dying people talking about loved ones coming to get them, and that the palliative care nurses looking after them know they're going to die because these conversations start or these visitations begin to happen. Also, if we take into account near-death experiences, we can also see there that near-death experiences talk about being met by spirit guides and loved ones whilst they cross into the spirit realms. So, and I can say from readings that I've done, sittings with clients, that spirit communicators often show me their crossing into a beautiful garden or into a seaside setting, or, you know, just being surrounded by loved ones. It seems that the experience itself is always unique. Now, what's interesting is there's been other channelers and mediums that have also talked about the spirit dimensions. One of my favourite books that I've enjoyed reading is a book called Testimony of Light by Helen Greaves. Helen is a channeler, but she was very good friends with a nun who was called Frances Banks. And when Frances crossed into the spirit world, she began to communicate, to channel through Helen her experiences in the spirit world. And what's interesting is these channeled accounts show how Frances talks about her work as a nun continuing and her want to actually help those who are crossing from physical world into the spiritual world, and how they nurture and help those who need to rest and recoup. So it seems that some of us, probably through perhaps suffering for a long time physically, have our energies drained, and as we cross into spirit, we're able to recoup in a loving, caring environment to rest and revitalize our energies so that then we can move into higher and higher forms of spirit. It's not just Helen Greaves that's written about this. I've also read a book called Life in the World Unseen, which is quite interesting, by Anthony Borgia. And that also talks about somebody's crossing into the spirit world and what the spirit dimensions are like, and that information being channeled back. It doesn't necessarily talk about hospital settings, but it just talks about how loved ones are met and how we meet others in the spirit dimensions. So for all of you out there that might be keen to get some kind of insight into what the spirit dimensions may be like, you may be interested in that book also. Emmanuel Swedenborg is also another person who also wrote extensively about insights he'd gained into what it's like in the spirit dimension. So it's not new for mediums and channelers to describe what it's like for those in the spirit dimension. So if any of you are keen to know more, I'll put in the comments below there links to the people and the books that I've been describing here, so that you can research more should you want to. My closing message really here for Liliana and for all of you who are watching this video is that even though no one can claim to know exactly what it's like in the spirit dimensions because we're here, the overriding research and common ground here is that none of us die alone. So really what I want to leave you with is maybe just a message, thought to consider that perhaps death isn't as frightening as it may seem to many of us here, and that that experience is supported and nurtured by those in spirit who care, who want to give us a positive, loving experience, to welcome us over there. And actually for those who are passing, it's a next grand adventure. So there's some food for thought for you. If you have any comments or stories you'd like to share, please leave them in the comments below also. I can't wait to share some more content with you here on my channel. But in the meantime, please do click the subscribe button or tap on the bell so that you can see when new videos from me are released. And I want to thank you so much for watching.